27 missed calls. That's what I woke up to at 3:18 a.m. in the cab of a Peterbilt 389, parked at a truck stop on I-70, outside Wheeling, West Virginia, 4 hours from home. 27 calls, all from my wife, all between 2:17 and 3:11 a.m. My body had shut down after 14 hours pouring concrete footings, deaf to everything, including a woman who needed me to answer. The last text, sent at 1:47 a.m., said, "Don't come home tonight." The one before it, sent at 6:12 p.m., said, "Working late. Be safe. Love you." Between "love you" and "stay away," 7 hours and 35 minutes had passed. Something had happened in those hours. Something that turned my wife from a woman who loved me into a woman warning me off. I called back. No answer. Voicemail. I got in my personal truck and drove 4 hours south toward Charleston, in silence, calling her, calling my kids, getting nothing. Every unanswered ring widened the gap between what I knew and what had happened. I turned onto Maple Ridge Drive at 7:14 a.m. and stopped the truck in the middle of the road. 4 police cars, an ambulance, crime scene tape across my own front porch, the porch I'd built with my hands. I got out and walked toward the house on legs that weren't waiting for permission from my brain. A young officer stepped in front of me. "Sir, you can't go in there. That's my house. Where's my wife? Where are my kids?" He glanced at his partner and said, low, like I couldn't hear him 3 feet away, "He has no idea what she just did." 6 words, an entire night I'd missed. The female officer, badge read Kellogg, walked over with steady eyes. "Mr. Bradshaw, your wife is safe. Your children are safe. At approximately 2:07 a.m., 2 men forced entry through your back door. Your wife confronted them. She discharged a firearm. 1 intruder was hit in the shoulder. Both are in custody. She's being treated as the victim. My wife, Nola, the school teacher. She'd shot someone." I went inside through the tape, past the splintered back door, past the numbered evidence markers, a crowbar, a shell casing, a smear of blood on the tile near the island I'd installed myself. In the living room, Nola sat wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea untouched in her hands, her face not scared, not angry, depleted, like a woman who'd spent every resource she had and had just enough left to sit upright. She saw me and broke. "Wyatt." She crossed the room and grabbed me with both arms. "They came for you," she said into my neck. "They came for you, and you weren't here, and I couldn't let them wait for you." Upstairs, my 10-year-old daughter Lark launched into my arms. "Mommy shot the bad man," she said, matter of fact, the way kids report the impossible. She told me to hide in the bathroom. She said, "Call 911 if I hear the gun." I called. I stayed on the phone until I heard the sirens. My son Colt, 13, sat on his floor, knees to his chest, staring at the wall with the blank cold of a kid whose nervous system had run out of room. Mom told me to take Lark to the bathroom. I heard the shotgun. I heard a man screaming. Then I heard Mom's voice. "Don't move or I'll shoot again." And the man stopped screaming. I sat down next to my son and put my arm around him, because sometimes the only thing a father can do is be a wall his son can lean against while the world reorganizes itself. Before I tell you why 2 men broke into my house at 2 a.m., before the safety complaint, the $2.3 million contract, the chain that turned a workplace report into attempted murder, you need to understand who my wife actually is. Because the woman on that couch wasn't the woman I married. She was something more. My name is Wyatt Bradshaw. I'm 46, a construction foreman in Charleston, West Virginia. My wife, Nola, 43, teaches 4th grade. Cardigans, chamomile tea, a "Be Kind" sign her students painted above her whiteboard. That's who I thought I married, a woman whose most dangerous possession was a hot glue gun. I was wrong. Nola grew up in McDowell County, the poorest county in West Virginia, coal country after the coal died. Her mother left when Nola was 8 and never came back. Her father, Ezekiel Pewitt, raised her alone, in a hollow, where the nearest sheriff was 45 minutes out. By the time he gets here, Ezekiel told her, "Whatever's going to happen has already happened. You decide what happens." He taught her to shoot at 11, not for sport, but because a girl alone in a hollow needs to be her own first responder. He taught her his Remington 870, load it, Rack it, aim it, fire it. Clear a room the way a hunter does, slow, quiet, still enough that the thing you're waiting for comes to you. At 18, Nola left for Marshall University on scholarship and built a life as far from that hollow as she could get without leaving the state. She became the teacher, the mother, the version of herself she chose to be. When Ezekiel died in 2017, she brought his shotgun home, not as a weapon, she told herself, but as a keepsake. I never asked if she knew how to use it. Why would I? She was a school teacher. Now the night. At 6:07 p.m. on October 15th, the doorbell rang. A man in work clothes, calm and rehearsed, told Nola that her husband's safety complaint against Whitmore Industrial Contracting had cost the company a $2.3 million contract and put the owner in line for prison. Tonight, after midnight, 2 men are coming for your husband. If he's here, they'll hurt him. If you call police, they'll find him at his job site tomorrow instead. Keep him away. Leave the house empty. Nobody gets hurt. Then he walked to an unmarked truck and drove off. Nola stood in the doorway for 90 seconds, thinking, call the police, but they'd find me at the open, unsecured job site. Take the kids and run. But if I don't answer, Wyatt drives home into whatever's waiting. Warn Wyatt to stay away, but that leaves the house open, and if they come back and find it empty, does the threat just return tomorrow, and the next day, forever? In 90 seconds she made her decision. Nobody comes into my house tonight. She texted me something ordinary. Working late. Be safe. Love you. So I wouldn't worry. Then called to confirm I was staying at the truck stop. Normal Wednesday. Mac and cheese for dinner. At 8:30, she put Lark to bed with new instructions, dressed up as a fire drill. If you hear something loud, go to the bathroom, lock the door, call 911. At 9 o'clock, she told Colt the truth plainly enough to be obeyed. Your job is to protect Lark. Not to come downstairs, not to investigate. He said it back to her like a soldier. At 9:15, she opened the locked case in our closet and took out her father's Remington 870, unfired since she emptied 3 rounds into a hillside at his funeral 8 years earlier. She loaded 5 shells of double buckshot. She killed every light in the house and sat in the dark kitchen behind the granite island, gun across her lap, from 10 p.m. until 2:07 a.m. 4 hours of silence, listening to our children breathe through the HVAC vents, every breath a reason to stay in that chair. At 1:47, she sent me the warning text, insurance, in case I woke early and decided to drive home. The plan only worked if I wasn't there. At 2:07, she heard boots on the back deck, 2 sets, heavy, untrained and quiet. She racked the shotgun, the single most universally understood sound in home defense, requiring no translation. The door splintered. 2 men came through, expecting an empty house. They found a voice in the dark. I have a shotgun pointed at you. I will fire if you move. Get on the floor. The first man, Ronan Hawley, rushed her, certain the voice was bluffing. It wasn't. She fired once, hit him in the shoulder. A blast that rattled the windows and woke both children right on cue. The second man, Lyle Creech, froze in the doorway as she racked the chamber again and said 5 words that would later be read in a courtroom. Don't move. I'll shoot again. He didn't move. Upstairs, Colt locked the bathroom door, and Lark called 911 with a steadiness the dispatcher, 22 years on the job, later called the calmest child's call she'd ever taken. Police arrived 7 minutes later to find 1 man bleeding on the kitchen floor, 1 man frozen with his hands up in the doorway, and Nola Bradshaw sitting behind the island, shotgun steady across her lap, refusing to lower it until both men were cuffed. How long were you sitting there? An officer asked. 4 hours. I was waiting. Ma'am, do you have training? My father taught me. Your father's dead. 8 years. He was a coal miner from McDowell County. He taught me to shoot because the sheriff was 45 minutes away, and the hollow didn't wait for the sheriff. Only after the cuffs clicked did she set the gun down and let her legs give out into an officer's arms. That's when she started calling me. Not to explain, just because the adrenaline was leaving her body, and she needed to hear that the reason for all of it, the reason she'd sat in the dark for 4 hours, was still alive 4 hours away, in a truck stop near Wheeling. I didn't answer. 27 times, my wife reached for me, and I wasn't there. It took 2 weeks for the full story to surface. In July, I'd filed a routine OSHA complaint against Whitmore Industrial, a subcontractor cutting corners on structural bracing during concrete pours. Bracing rated for half the load it carried, a setup that could collapse and kill every man under it. I'd warned them twice on site. They ignored me. I filed the report because that's what a foreman does. The investigation confirmed the violations. Whitmore lost their $2.3 million state contract, and owner Dale Whitmore was charged with criminal negligence. He blamed me, not the corner cutting, not the investigators, me. He sent a messenger to warn my wife, then sent 2 men to come for me, assuming a school teacher would follow instructions and leave the house empty. He had no idea about McDowell County, no idea about Ezekiel Pewitt, no idea about the girl who learned to clear a room before she learned to drive. Dale Whitmore was arrested November 2nd on federal charges: conspiracy, witness intimidation, obstruction. Holly and Creech were charged with breaking and entering and attempted assault. The messenger, identified through a neighbor's doorbell camera, cooperated with the FBI. The case is moving, slowly, the way federal cases do. 3 days after the crime scene tape came down, Nola and I finally talked, really talked, in the living room. "Why didn't you call the police?" I asked. "Because they said if I called, they'd find you at the job site. No fence, no security. I couldn't protect you there. I could protect you here. I know this house. I know the sight lines. I know where to sit so anyone coming through that door is backlit by the streetlight while I'm in the dark. I know all of that because my father made sure I'd know it, in a hollow where the only thing between me and whatever was coming was me. You sat in the dark for 4 hours, with a shotgun. You're a school teacher." She looked at me the way you look at someone who's known you one way for 15 years and is about to see the rest. "I'm a teacher because I chose to be one. I grew up in a hollow with a father who raised me alone and a mother who left when I was 8. I didn't want to be the girl who could clear a room with a pump-action shotgun. I wanted to be the woman who never had to be her again. But my father taught me one thing I never forgot. You can choose who you want to be, but never forget who you know how to be. I chose to be a teacher, but when 2 men came through my back door for my children's father, I remembered who I know how to be. I looked at this woman I'd shared 4,000 nights with. She'd sat in our kitchen in the dark, waiting for men who'd come to kill me, and stopped them with a precision she'd never once mentioned in 13 years of marriage. Not to hide it, but because becoming someone new sometimes means leaving parts of yourself behind and hoping you never have to go back for them. On October 15th, she went back, and she came back for us. It's December now. The back door's been replaced, the tile scrubbed clean, the evidence markers long gone. The Remington 870 was released by police once ballistics confirmed self-defense. It's back in the closet, but not locked away anymore. It sits on a shelf, loaded, within reach. Not a keepsake, a tool, the way it always was. Colt sees a counselor weekly, working through the night in bursts of silence and unnamed anger. Last week he told me he wants to learn to shoot. I said we'd talk about it when he's older. He said, "Mom was 11 when Grandpa taught her." I didn't have an answer for that, because he was right. Lark drew a picture that's now taped to our fridge, next to the grocery list and a field trip permission slip. A woman in a kitchen holding something long, a broom, or a gun, depending how you look at it. Above her, in crayon, "My mom is brave." I filed a safety report because workers were in danger. It cost a man his contract and triggered criminal charges. He sent men to hurt me. My wife, the teacher, the mother, the girl from the hollow, stopped them. I protected the men on my crew. She protected our family. Her father protected her, 30 years before any of this happened, without ever knowing what he was preparing her for. So here's what I'd ask you. What would you do if your wife texted you at 1:47 in the morning, "Don't come home tonight," and you had no idea those 4 words were the most loving thing she'd ever said to you, not pushing you away, but pulling the danger toward herself, so it would never reach you? Do you really know the person you married? Not the pancakes and cardigans version, the version that shows up at 2 a.m. when the back door splinters, and the only thing standing between your children and the men who came for their father is a woman in the dark with her dead father's shotgun. You don't marry a person. You marry a history, a childhood, a set of skills forged somewhere you've never been, by someone you never met, and sometimes On the worst night of your life, that history walks out of the closet with a loaded Remington and saves everyone you love. Don't come home tonight. 4 words. The bravest sentence I've ever received. Not because she was afraid, because she was ready.